Hello. I think this is working, isn't it? Say something in the chat if you can see and hear me. Can you hear me? There we go. Hello. So hopefully the audio quality isn't too. Hello. Hopefully the audio quality is doing okay. Yeah, I'm at my partner's house because my housemates have the COVID-19, so I don't have my regular microphone or anything either. So hope and there's construction on all sides. So hopefully the audio's not going to be too bad. But yeah, hello everyone. Hello, um, it's post season 4 Q&A time where I try to answer questions in a way that's interesting. Uh, lovely to see some of you guys there. Some of you I don't believe would have been around for the previous one. Um, so yeah, uh, basically, I'll just waffle for a moment while you guys get some get some questions going. Um, season 4, we survived. Eagle didn't. um, yeah, I'll just yeah, season 4. That was the show is getting bigger and more complicated, which was always the idea. I always had a notion that you know you can either start a story small and keep it small, or you can start a story small and make it bigger and bigger, but that you should always keep getting bigger. You shouldn't try to scale it back because that becomes anticlimactic. So now I've had the scale increase quite a lot in season 4, and I find myself having to write season 5. So that's off to an interesting start. Um, I am 16,000 words into season 5, roughly at the moment, I think. Which is mostly standalone stories. I've got like the first couple of chapters of episodes worth of um, the meta narrative, the main plot. I don't know what you call it at this point. Written, but yeah, mostly I've been trying to figure out the structure of it more than anything for this season because yeah, last season, season 4, started out, has those two plot threads that both kind of explode towards the end there. Of We've got the mission through the glassway, and then we've got the what's going on with security, both of which are kind of slow burn stories that kind of happen over the course of the season. And initially, I wasn't sure, well, I wasn't really planning on doing them both at the same time initially, and then as I was writing the season, I realized, oh, actually, it's better pacing wise to have both at once. I can have multiple story threads going at the same time, which is obviously um, more complicated. And yeah, I think it was definitely for the best for that season. But now I find like trying to figure out how to keep that up. Do I need to add? Do I keep it to two story threads? Do I narrow it down little again? It's yeah, it's an interesting start to writing the next part of the story because it keeps getting bigger, and that means I have to figure out how to write it bigger and bigger. So it's going okay so far, but we'll see. Small questions starting out. Okay, yeah, it's just start putting the questions in the chat and just go for it. All of you, if you have any questions, big and small, and we'll see how it goes. Go with the flow or whatever. Uh, yeah, yeah. So we introduced some new characters this season. We introduced Eagle, and then we killed Eagle. We introduced Beast and the heads of retrieval and research. Uh, and yeah, they were all people. Oh, and Astrid, of course, Astrid. With the exception of Astrid, they're all people I already knew playing those roles. I I uh, doing better at it, but I'm still pretty anxious about asking people to be in the show and such. So I have stuck to people I know. As we go forward, hopefully I'll get better at asking a broader group of people and stuff. And I do pay them all if they accept payment. Zane doesn't. Um, but yeah, the one exception being Astrid, Lena, who plays Astrid, it does live streaming on Twitch, and I mentioned I have a podcast, and she encouraged me to post the link in the disc in her Discord, and then I did, and she said like, "Oh yeah, this is really cool, and of course I'll take a role in it. Thank you for offering, just as a joke." And then I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to blink first." So then I offered her a role. So that's a fun way that started. All right, so questions. Who made the cover art and how was it made? That was me. I made the cover art. It's a very simple process for the cover art for this. Well, for the cover art for this season, that is. I also made the cover art with the empty exhibit case. That became the main image for the show, kind of. And but Zane, who is the Podfather, I think is the official role. That's not canon, which is just like that's not canon. It's a collective more than a studio or a production house or anything. It's just like we all uh, just a bunch of communists sharing our skills and assets and that sort of thing. So first season, Zane made that in consultation with me. Like I gave the vibe and ideas and stuff, and then tweaked it. And then second season, I wanted to stretch my legs a bit with the visual design and stuff. So I made the exhibit and the empty exhibit one and this season, and it was just in Photoshop. Uh, it's quite. I can't draw for the life of me. I have no that part of the artistic stuff is not something I'm capable of. But if you have an idea and a vibe that you're going for, I think it's not too hard to just get a stock image because it's stock images. It's a stock image of I knew I wanted a stock image of an exhibit or an empty exhibit or something like that. Maybe an empty painting frame for season two of the second version. So I found the empty case and I messed with the. Hopefully you can't hear the construction that's just started up. I messed with the lighting and the atmosphere, and I used Photoshop's AI generation stuff to make the background bigger. So it was in the original photo, the original stock image, the empty display case is much bigger in the frame, but I wanted it to be smaller so I can fit the name of the show. I'm just fiddling with some string here, by the way, in case you can't see. That's just keeping me sane. So I used Photoshop's AI generative suite to just extend the blank wall around it and extend the flooring and extend it as far as it could before the AI kind of went off the rails and started making it look not quite right. So I just made it as big as I could, and then just made that the image. And then for the season 4 art, it was just a combination of stock images. It's just again, if you know what you're doing, all I did was I took it's actually originally a mirror. It is actually a mirror, I think, in the original. It's like an old mirror because the old mirrors in some cases used to be made of highly polished brass. So that's how it gets the lovely kind of sepia sort of look to the image of the forest on the other side. And then what I did is I cut a rectangle out of the center of the frame, of the center of the mirror, turned the opacity down. Then on the layer behind it, I put another stock image of the forest, of just like a forest that looked like what I wanted to go for. And then I futzed with the opacity on the mirror part, and then the coloration, the atmosphere and stuff, until I thought that it had the right mix of like kind of a little bit whimsical, a little bit I don't know, yeah, just like a little bit. Oh, you found a magical mirror in your eccentric old grandfather's attic, and now you're going to go on an adventure through it. But also just like a little bit of, making I blurred the forest on the other side just enough that you can't really make out a lot of detail to imply the menace there as well. Yeah, it's just one of those things where you have an idea and you just fiddle until you figure out how to do it. That was a long answer. Next, new voices and characters. Do I have favorites? Oh, that's hard. I liked all. I think that they've all worked out really well. I probably on some level I'm really happy with how Beast turns out. I play Beast, by the way. That surprised a couple of people. Um, a Beast, the voice turned out really well in the end. It took a lot of work to get there and figure out how the Beast's voice should sound. Initially, like as I was writing it, and it was a bit placeholder. I was thinking it was just like, oh, maybe it's like a kind of a menacing sort of not quite Cockney thing. I think I'd quite recently played Disco Elysium, so I was kind of had the ancient reptilian brain's voice of just like, hello there, my name is just Beast, sort of thing, which would have been impossible to do for me as an untrained voice actor to do on any sort of prolonged recording without completely destroying my throat. So that was not something that like Zane and I were just like, as soon as we got in the studio, it was just like, no, we can't do this. So it took a long time to figure out the right balance of strange and like the implication of too many teeth, and like the fact that we wanted to be really clear that speaking was difficult for it just because its face and mouth isn't human shaped. So like I'm really happy with how it turned out, but also it's not very fun recording it because what I do is, yes, hello, my name is the Beast, and it's very unpleasant to do for long recording sessions, as you can imagine. And then I do a little bit of work in post. I just add two more echoes of the voice in post at lowered pitch, and that's just the Beast voice. So yeah, but the other characters like Eagle and Zane and Retrieval and Research and Restoration, they're all just and Astrid, they all like they all just nail it. It's yeah, no, they all just like it's a couple of things where on the one hand I pick the actors based on like if I think they're going to be appropriate for the character, and then as soon as I hear them as the character, I'm like, well, that's the character's voice now. When I think of them when I'm writing, I think of them doing that, and it's just yeah, it lines up really well. I think that Liz, who plays Restoration in particular, has been in the last season has really just knocked it out of the park on a couple of those more difficult things where the what happened to security episode and the journey of a character having to come to terms with well the guide is here to stay, and actually maybe I'm the one who's been mistreating it, and just trying to being clear, very much a for she's never been wrong in her life, and now she has to grapple with the fact that maybe she was, and like she's just knocked it out of the park with that. So I think that this season, like Liz was an MVP this season for sure. She yeah. Uh, so fan reactions to Beast at the start. I I knew that people would really like Beast. I know what the sorts of people who would like Mistholme would be like and how they would react. Um, and so I it was uh, it was heartening that I was right in understanding and knowing that people would like kind of half mistrust the Beast, but also really come to love the Beast, and then be really heartbroken when it turns out the Beast was never on the guide's side, really. So I was on the one hand, yeah, hey, I was right, but also I was worried that people might think it was a bit too far, or that it was like a bit of a, I don't know, like a cruel, grim, dark sort of twist. But I think people have mostly been okay, but mostly liked the reveal because it's barely a reveal. It's just like all I did was I put a horrible monster that eats jackalopes and is just the most unsettling thing in the world. and had it be unsettling and strange, and then had it turn out to be the bad guy, and you all fooled yourselves because you wanted it to be better and it just wasn't. It's an untwist, and I love it. Um, yeah, so yeah, Beast is. Oh dear, no, I'm still here. I think that yeah, sorry, it's all good. My internet's probably fine. That's probably not fine because I live in Australia, rather. Inspiration for the larger plot at play. How far in advance plot plan versus when we began the series? Look, I think I probably mentioned it before, but I always knew that there was that I was going to build the plots and have it be grow more and more. But there's there's a real element of it all just kind of happened from a small thing, which is that I was working on the individual stories and like the concepts and stuff in 2019, and then 2020 happened. As we all know, what happened in 2020. So I was rushing to get like a 6 episode first season done before lockdown orders started happening in Australia, and that's when so at the end of season one, at the end of the 6th episode, sixth, yeah, I think so. The museum goes into a lockdown, and that was just kind of like that. Just kind of started as like a. I mean, it was obviously going to be like, oh, I'll build on it. This is going to be an important plot element, but it did kind of start out as a joke to a degree, or like a not a joke, but like a reference to how the world was, and even like involuntary isolation, like as the guide describes it at the end of that episode, was it just goes to show how fast the like the nomenclature and the world was changing at that time. Because at the time I wrote that, voluntary isolation was a big thing in my neck of the woods. At least it was just like, oh yes, if you've been exposed, because we didn't know how bad things were going to be, so it wasn't like, oh, you must stay at home. It's just like, oh, if you've been exposed, please it's voluntary, but please isolate, that sort of thing, and that sort of thing. So it was voluntary isolation created the involuntary isolation, and then from there it was just like, well, why was the museum locked down? Who is responsible? And I knew that obviously this early on, I was in season one, I had references to the man with the voice, who is much more complicated than the man now. But yeah, it's kind of a matter of, I have the broad strokes of where the story is going in my head, and then at the start of it, I write the whole seasons to get to a certain point. But I don't rigidly stick to the same ideas the whole way through, because like I'm letting the characters lead me to the end of a storyline, and then maybe the characters, I discover things about the characters, and the characters change, and so the end of the storyline kind of changes. Like in season three, there was originally a version before the Wish engine became the thing. There was going to be a version where there was well, no, not sorry, no, not the Wish. The Wish engine was still part of it, but it was a matter of only like the head of restoration leading the guide to the Wish engine is like, only a person can activate the Wish engine. So if you can do it, that means you're a person. And I thought that once I got to around the point where I was getting to the Wish engine, it was like, no, that's not satisfying. Like a weird magical thing being like, you are a person because you can pull this lever or something. That's just like, that's not satisfying. That's not how self-actualization should work. So yeah, I changed. I like that story element with the Wish with the Wish engine was still there, but having the guide self-actualize was just an internal journey rather than like a mechanical thing. And then so instead of and obviously that meant the interaction with the head of restoration was more interesting, because she has to come to terms in her own heart with the guide being its own person, and therefore she can't, like, she works in absolutes and she works with technology, and then so it would be much simpler if some sort of arcane machine told her this is a person. So yeah, it's a matter of, I know where the plot is going in general, but I'm not afraid of letting that change. Yeah. I don't like to put your heart to the ringer. It's just how stories work sometimes. And I am sorry. I was really worried that it might have gone too far in the last two episodes of the season. I did yank the chain a little bit in that last episode. It's just like, oh, the guide's heartbroken. The guide's thought ahead. The guide's figured it out. The guide's captured and can't. Yeah, it's just like you can't have any wins as far as I'm concerned. Well, you can't have too many wins. Inspiration for the plot is fairy lore well, fairy lore has always been fun, and just like the weird specificity of a lot of that is, yeah, and that's going to inform the story going forward. But also just like I've always liked TV shows where there's episodic stories and then the broader narrative developing, and you know using the using pre-existing stories and folklore and stuff, not as like a crutch, but as a way to make the stories feel real. Like, oh, this is a story that I've heard before. This is just the real version of it, sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of where the inspiration for some of the stories comes through. Is just being like, hey, you've heard of. Oh yeah, there was a story about this guy who met the devil at the crossroads. I remember that. It's just like, well, here's that one's a very early example. Like the style of the show has shifted a little bit since then, but yeah. Uh, let's see. Happy ending feels related to question. Oh, sorry. Do we need to broach the base for tragic ending, something happy, bittersweet, or open ended? I missed that one earlier. Sorry. I mean, I can't say spoilers. I think that I like bittersweet endings. I think that they're always fun. So yeah, I think that looking at the way that the stories tend to go and the way the show tends to go, I think that bittersweet will kind of color a lot of the show. Even like the guys getting actualization and realizing that it's changed and it's become more of a person. Uh, like that's the sweet, and then the bitter is it's realizing that just as the beast uses that information against it, sort of thing. Like so, yeah, that's maybe brace for that. But I think that part of the part of something I've been very careful, maybe I don't know. I've enjoyed doing is surprising you guys and having stories that aren't always just a huge downer. Like I waited until the sixth episode. I wanted to like the end of the first season before I had a story that was just I mean, Bacchus Road is still bittersweet because there's the open-ended weirdness of whether they'll actually find each other or whatever. But yeah, I want it to be not you're not always like, oh, it's going to be another horror, because if it's always horror, then it's rarely surprising. So there's scary ones, there's heartwarming ones, there's tragic ones, there's comedic ones. So I think that's yeah, you can't be prepared too much. I feel like uh, I'm not talking about the ending anymore. Don't worry, don't worry, that'll be done. All right. Correct pronouns used for the man. I am going to yeah, that's one of those things where it's tricky, isn't it? Because like we still don't have any other name for the man other than the man. I think that him is still apt because yeah, like because we don't have any. I'm sorry, I'm thinking from you guys' perspective of the information you have. I kind of uh I think that the man and maybe like some of the Fey stuff in general is going to you guys can see that it's going in a Fey direction, obviously. Is what yeah I was talking to Zen, it's just like, oh, do you think this is a bit of a cheap twist, just being like, oh, I used to have a friend using she her pronouns, and it's like, oh, it's the man. I'm like, well, and the response, the ending we came to was basic, or the resolution we came to was basically, well, the man isn't human. The man is not whatever the man is. It's not a thing that exists. It's a very strange being that obviously doesn't ascribe to our own understandings of reality, let alone gender. So it's just for us, it was a matter of why can't why can't a fey creature be genderqueer? And that is kind of how we think of the man at this point is genderqueer, is just like just his own thing. Uh, yeah. Don't ask what. Um, I like that. That's that. What is skittlings has taken off so quickly. People just like questions. People just like unanswered questions. Uh, yeah, as the he, they, she for the man. Like, yeah, I kind of, I can't. Yeah, it's I kind of use it changes on the mood, and I think that's probably kind of in keeping with how the man operates. Uh, yeah. Do we have any other questions that aren't about skittlings? And we can. I don't know if you guys particularly care about the book manuscript that I've been posting in the Patreon, but you can ask questions about that or other projects if you'd like. Um, but yeah, were there any other questions? Did I miss anyone? Yes. The beast and the man steal genders and pronouns. And most of all, they steal hearts and then crush them in their hands or claws or whatever it is that the beast has. I've been really enjoying like a couple of different fan art interpretations of the beast. Like it's always just awful. There's different details and different interpretations, but no matter what, it's just horrible to look at. And I'm just like, yes, perfect. Um, let's see. Mistholme the Guide to Catch a Break. Oh, maybe. Yeah, we'll see. It's not much of a story if it doesn't catch a break. Yeah. I haven't looked into editors and publishers just yet. I'm waiting on Zane to have a full read through of the whole thing because I lean on Zane as a complete crutch for my own neuroses and lack of self confidence. So yeah, mostly I'm waiting on Zane to read through it, and my partner has a copy has the full thing, and my brother I think I sent it to, just to get some feedback and maybe do a second draft before doing the publisher or editor thing because that's gonna be difficult. Um, or a long period if it goes anywhere at all. It's impossible to see how it goes. So I want it to be the best version it can be before I even try to start. But yeah, um, I am excited to see you guys. I need to post this month's chapter at some point as well. The name Mistholme. Yeah. So Mistholme was there's I do have lore, but behind why Mistholme in universe. But out of universe, it was initially it went through a couple of things. It was always M names, but and it was always mystery, morbidity, and mortality. It was a bit of a like I've definitely told this one before, but like yeah, I in between I was on an internship in Sydney, and in between getting out of bed and starting rehearsals, there was an internship at a theatre. I had already come up with the entire intro, um, and sent it to Zane, being like, "Hey, do you want what? Is this interesting to you?" But the name was changed a couple of. It never. We always locked it in as Mistholme. Was never definitely anything else, but there were a couple other ones. Couple of other ones that turned out to. I don't know what was going on in my head. I think just it's the vibe that we were kind of looking at was. There was two that was Moorhaven and Marbrook or something, and I Googled both of those, and they're both notorious insane asylums. So I didn't go with those. Uh, uh, I just yeah, but yeah, I don't know. That was just a vibe that was going through my head. But Mistholme was yeah, we're just trying to come up with an M name like mystery, morbidity, and mortality. I love alliteration. I'm very basic. But yeah, so Misthaven was another option. There was couple of other M Home sort of ones, but yeah, Mistholme was the one that that really like stuck, I think. And yeah, yeah, I like once I had that, I was just like, well, why is it called Mistholme? And you'll find out someday. And yeah, we just yeah, Mistholme while running season one. You know, it was just while we were getting the whole thing together, figuring out what the vibe of the show was. There was a there were different vibes that were going through. There was one point it could have been more of a secret government operation sort of thing, or maybe there are other organizations elsewhere in the world doing similar things to Mistholme, and in the end didn't really go for that. But yeah, uh, merch items. Yeah, I guess I need to think about that. Um, yeah, that's because I say again, I don't have any drawing or artistic talents. I'll talk to my partner about that. We've got some. We had those the two of the curator's cat and the jackalope one, which were amazing. But yeah, I should brainstorm some more ideas for that. It's just yeah, the merch stuff is a fun, just a little side thing. It doesn't make too much money, but I know that that people like to have merch to either show off that they like something or just to have something they can hold. So yeah, I should think about doing some more of that stuff. Definitely. Uh, oh, the guide is Mistholme. Oh, I had the I re, in I was thinking about that stuff in season three, or maybe even a little earlier, because I had the idea of the true name stuff was definitely in there, and I wanted to find a way to incorporate the mention of true names in season three, and I don't think I wound up doing it. I it's just like um wanted it to feel organic, like because it would have been foreshadowing, and I don't want foreshadowing to feel too sloppy because or too obvious. There are because sometimes you have things that are dropped that are just there to foreshadow something in the next season. So yeah, I knew that I was going to be doing stuff with true names, and therefore, like, well, what's the guide's true name? That was also another part of the whole thing with is the guy like the guide personhood and that whole kind of um, adjusted storyline with the head of restoration. So I knew that I was going to get into the true name stuff, and then yeah, it was just a kind of just a natural thing that the guide would therefore be the museum and therefore be Mistholme. It wasn't like a aha sort of thing. It was just like, well, we're doing true names. Well, the guide is becoming the museum, so the guide's name becomes Mistholme. Just kind of it felt like an organic thing. Uh, yes, yes. Did I mention were there true name stuff in season three? I can't even. Yeah, there is definitely foreshadowing stuff that there is some stuff that I yeah I wish that I'd had in season three because I think as it is like the true name stuff kind of I was worried that it was too obvious and people were kind of picking up like oh no the guide's there's gonna be true name stuff they mention the true names because it's the law of conservation of detail that I'm going to mention true names because true names are going to become important. Like, and some people are worrying, oh no, the guide's accidentally going to give away that Eagle's true name is Francis, something like that. But I think some people were still surprised. I think a lot of people were still surprised. But yeah, I had tried to find a way to organically bring in the concept of true names in season three, but then it was just a matter of the guide is only talking to the Clockwork Mother and Restoration in season three, and Restoration's scenes are very specific and very constrained, and the Clockwork Mother doesn't speak out loud, only speaks via sign language. So it was like there's no back and forth that can easily happen there for the audience. So I just couldn't find a way to organically do it. Yeah, um, yeah. The guide picking a name. I did know at that point that the guide wouldn't be picking its name, and so I was just like sitting there being like, heartbreak incoming, because I am a little evil. What would the guide choose as its name? I think the guide did like the idea of having a bird name early on in when it was with Raptor Team, and then the the Beast jokingly referred to it as Ghost Bird, which is a bird that exists and also a reference to Annihilation because I was reading Annihilation at the time. So I think that the guide there was going like the if the Beast hadn't come along, the guy would have been like, I think my name could be Fairy Wren or something like that. It would just come up with a kind of with a silly little name for itself that everyone else would have been like, oh, that's a little too cute. That's not much of a name, but everyone would accept it because it's the guide's choice. But that wasn't to be. And as of now, I think the guide is kind of like it is like its name is Mistholme, but it's referring to itself as the guide. A, because it can't tell people its name is Mistholme. That's very dangerous. And B, because the I think the idea of it being Mistholme and having its own true name has kind of been taken from it to a degree. So it's kind of a defiance of the beast that it would refer to itself as the guide. Talking so much. Okay. Well, yeah. From a friend, the guy ate audio tour guide could eat human foods. What would his favorite ice cream flavor be? I do want to say vanilla. I don't know. I feel like the guide would be really into the subtleties of a really good vanilla ice cream, and also wouldn't really understand why other people were just like, oh, vanilla, that's a bit of a basic flavor. And it's just like, what do you mean? It's lovely. Um, yeah. Oh, you would. The guy. I think if you said you would die for the guy with that stress, I think the guy would be like, oh, okay, is that likely to happen? It would be something along the lines of the response. Yeah. Any more questions? Have I missed any? I do have. I have so for the bits of season 5 that I've written. There is that it's not a swear, but I haven't introduced a new character or already in season 5. The guide and the audio and the guide and the mother are both a bit like, oh, this fucking guy. And the mother, I think I have it referred just like the guide translates for this character as just well, you've met the new character at the end of the season. Yeah, that the one that captures them. I think the guide translates for that character that the mother just called it a ponce, because he is a bit of a ponce, really. Um, yeah, the guide would never dare censor mother. I think. Um, yeah, uh, yeah. I also have mentioned in that bit that the mother is using Auslan, which is an Australian sign language, just in case anyone wondered about that. Just because I'm Australian, so felt like it made sense. And I know a handful of signs in Auslan from an old show I did. Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else? Did anyone have any questions from friends or people who weren't able to be here, or just anything else at all? 2 in 1. What does that mean? Who's standalone from this season? All right, let's have a look. What happened this season? It all blurs together so terribly. This all feels so long ago. Oh dear. Oh, and also the collar was actually It's funny, the collar, the one about the blotter and the journey and then the sacrifice. I had that as that's the final episode of season 4, but actually I wrote that during season 3, and then that got held off because I had a couple of back when the request request an exhibit thing was on a lower Patreon tier. I had a couple of people request exhibits fairly late in the season, so I wrote new ones, and then I had to push the collar to the season 4 lineup, and then it fit really well right at the end. So it's just kind of funny that I wrote it for season 3, and then it wound up being the last episode of season 4. I liked let's see, season 4. I liked the Hand of Glory. The Hand of Glory was because I like DB Cooper is kind of it's a fun in joke I have with a couple of friend groups where we like to talk about we just randomly imply for no reason that we are DB Cooper. It like that it was just like actually it was me. It was just like um, just like randomly references to that time we jumped out of a plane with a certain amount of cash over the continental United States, that sort of thing. So I like having having it's the story of a bank robber who uses the ornate and specific abilities of a Hand of Glory, and then it then morphs into DB Cooper's territory at the end, and then the character was actually blind the whole time. It was just like just a silly little twister of a few different things there. I like it when I twist a few things together. I actually just wrote a Patreon requested an exhibit, and I just wrote it, and it twists a couple of different concepts I had together. That was fun to write. I also liked that was last season, wasn't it? Oh no, that wasn't last season. Never mind. Let's see, the Ghost Town one about the siblings. That was God, that was such a long story, but I actually think that unlike some stories like they wind up being a bit too long. With that one, I was just like, well, this one feels a bit cinematic, which is similar to the dogs tags from season 3. It was just like a big story with a beginning and characters and an emotional action packed sort of climax. Those ones, like, I like to try to do last couple of seasons. I try to do like a bit of those ones where they're kind of like big event episode sort of things where it's all one story. A Ghost Light as well was well, I think I wrote the Ghost Light for season three as well, and then that held off because I managed to. I think I included a reference to Edgar Allan's Ghost Light in season 3 because I knew that I wouldn't. That I had that one written. I just included a reference to it to have some continuity there. The Hunters of the Fallow Lands. That was another fun one where it was just a short one where I was just like, hey, I'm going to do a bit of a shift in style, which again, it's good to do. It's good to stretch your different muscles a little. There's one I've written for season 5, which is a letter, which is written in a different voice. Yeah, those are fun to do. So yeah, there's some. I like the ones that are a bit that let me stretch things out and work in a bit of a different style almost. Yeah, those are always fun. Right, so producing an episode process. So I write everything, almost everything, in advance, well in advance. It's why I take breaks. We're on a break right now. I write all the individual stories, and I write the narrative sections, and then I fit it all together, and I try to have the episodes be the right length and have like kind of maybe some tonal or thematic relevance between the different sections. And I have so I write the different sections, and I have Zane read them, and Zane mostly just says, "Yeah, that's good," and I go, "Thank you." Or, there's also notes and stuff, but yeah. Then there's so I record an episode. I record the stories, and that I for the first season I recorded it all well in advance. For subsequent seasons, I've just done it episode by episode because they've just gotten longer and longer. So it's just a matter of, well, let's just do it fortnight by fortnight. Lets me get into a good rhythm. So we record them, and then the next few days, like this season, we recorded the the episodes on a Thursday or Friday, and then over like the next few days, I edit the dialogue, um, find bits that need pickups and like bits that could have been said a bit better, or where I made a weird noise or something like that. Then on Monday or Tuesday, we record the pickups, and then I integrate them over Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, put it all into the timeline in Audition, add the sound effects, add all of the bells and whistles, and it's done. It's yeah, it's fairly straightforward. It's part of the this overall style of the show was written and created in line with what I'm capable of. So yeah, yeah. Everyone loves non-binary DB Cooper. Well, who can blame them? Inspiration for Liza plot play. Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I've definitely started planning further ahead than what I was at the beginning. Yeah, season one was mostly like was all standalone stories and stuff, with the idea that they would build to something, and that the man with the voice was going to be important, and that there were stranger things going on at the museum. But now, yeah, I last Q&A, I said like, oh, I've got ideas for like 9 seasons around that, and now I don't know if it's 9 seasons, because that was before I realized that season four would use two plot lines at once, and now I don't know about the pacing for it. I'm just, maybe it should be shorter. So that's just something I'm constantly thinking about, of how far season five gets into the story is something I'm really trying to grapple with. Is Yeah, it's one of the tougher things for me, at least, is figuring out where a season stops, and what that point is, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I do have. Yeah, I've been there is yeah. So from early on, there's been the man with the voice plotline, and then there's been something else that I won't hint at too long, but I will say that yeah, there's been hints at something else going on. Um, and usually, it's a matter of looking at what I've got and figuring out what an interesting thing to do with that could be. What the? Oh no! But there's a there's a butcher bird right flying into my window. I think it's okay. I don't know why it's doing that. It's not a Mistholme fan. So, hang on. Oh, it's gone. Oh, it's okay. It's just flown off. Yeah. It's it's, I don't know. I wanted to make a joke that it was a fan of a rival podcast, but I don't have rivals. I'm too small time to have rivals. So yeah, inspirations for the larger plot. I mean, inspirations for the larger plot. It's the same for just about everyone. It's the stories and stuff that I've read, and the TV shows that I've watched maybe more broadly. I really liked Fringe, uh, which is a TV show, and I liked the way that it used weird science and myth for its individual stories, while clearly while building up a larger story slowly as it went. And like in like the fourth season or something, or third season, like they've had these strange things called the observers watching, and occasionally interacting with the protagonist. Then around the fourth or fifth season, it's just like, oh, these guys are a bigger deal than we thought. These are the plot. These guys are the main story now. So I like that. Helak, older mentioned characters. Yes, that is something. So people, yeah, people. I do poke an eye in, and watch people like discussing the show and theorizing and stuff. And yeah, there is a lot of people like guessing at who characters could be, and at identities, and or maybe this is actually this older character. And obviously, I'm not going to spoil if any of that's accurate. But I am constantly thinking about what's an appropriate amount of like, I guess, fan service, trying not to trying not to avoid pleasing the fans, but also try not to indulge it too much and finding the right balance. And I think that part of what I've done a couple of times now is if there's been a couple of fan theories where they weren't what I had in mind, but I haven't then changed my plans to accommodate them, but instead maybe smoothed a couple of details over so they don't contradict that anymore because I don't want to contradict you guys. I mean, I'm gonna keep writing the story that I'm writing, and I am aware that just theorizing and guessing and all that stuff is just part of how a lot of people enjoy art. It's I like to be a bit of a critic myself sometimes. I don't usually go in too much for the theorizing and the trying to figure it out ahead of time thing. I like to go along with the flow, but for a lot of people, putting together pieces that might not even be there intentionally is a big part of the appeal of engaging with something. So I won't always indulge that, but I try not to ruin that either. I think that that can be fun. There's definitely one or two bits where uh where there's like a character that people have been like, oh, what if it's this person from this older story? And I've just been like, that's not what I had in mind. But if I delete these couple of lines from an upcoming segment featuring the character you think is that other character, they could be now, and that's fine. So yeah, just trying to. There's a dog trying to get in. Oh dear. Hold on. Let's see if there's any more questions. But oh, hey, let's have a cameo. Hey. Yes. This is Zephyr. He's a rat. You guys happy? Hello. Belongs to my partner. See you, buddy. He is a big rat. He is every breed and none of them all at once. His breed is anxiety, is what it is. Yeah. So yeah, bringing back exhibits and characters. Like obviously, I've quickly had the running gag of the crystal skull, which is just like a funny thing. To just keep having just pop up and then not explain. That's fun. Um, it was actually kind of fun because when I was writing the story about the submerged house with the fish people or the weird subterranean people stuff and the guy who breaks in. I initially had that as oh, it's the skull of one of those creatures, and then I was like, no, no, it can't be the skull because now I can't do a crystal skull, and that's such a classic piece of apocrypha and that sort of thing. So I'll change it to I think I changed it to the skeleton, so I could have a crystal skull be an exhibit, and then I wound up using the crystal skull as a silly running gag where I don't actually have a story about it. Um, the dog belongs to my partner who I'm staying with. His name is Zephyr. Um, there have been a couple of stories like that. There's people suggest pieces of lore and or folklore or that sort of thing, and I think about it and I try to think how it could be an exhibit, and eventually I kind of have to abandon it because the stories about it are so specific, or they're already too Mistholme in their own way. Like I can't figure out a way to make it an original story inspired by the lore as opposed to just a retelling of the lore. And that's something you can see. Like I've figured out that's part of the voice of the show is to have its own versions of those things and have it be broader than that. Because like in the first couple of episodes, you have the riff on the Cottingley fairies, and then the riff on the Devil and Robert Johnson with the guitar, and like they are distinct from the actual history or the history as it may be, but they're not as different as later stories are. And I think a couple like I do see people being like, oh yeah, the first couple episodes aren't very good, but it gets so good, and I'm just like, okay, I actually think like some people really like those first few episodes. I think that it's it's just one of those things where I really try to make every story be as as much of a contender to be someone's favorite story as the next. But yeah, there's some stories like there's some stuff like I think maybe it was even Dairy last Q&A, or someone else maybe asked if I was ever going to do a story about a Selkie, which is a mythological creature that is a woman who wears a seal pelt and turns into a seal and then is bound to land by a man who captures it by hiding the seal pelt. And I tried to think about how a story about that could work and be a Mistholme story, and eventually I was just realized that what uh, what's the Mistholme version of that? That's already kind of like the heartachy sort of it's not quite ironic, but the bittersweetness of the actual mythology of that feels like a complete Mistholme story already. And I don't if I changed it was you, Darren. There we go. If I change too much, it feels like I'm just writing a different story and calling it to be about a Selkie. So I'm just like, yeah. And that was yeah, that's the same thing with like the crystal skull. Was so I real like, oh, a crystal skull. That's such a thing. It's an item. Oh, it's actually they're all fake. But what if there weren't? What's the mythology there? But then it's just like, what do I actually do with that? Because crystal skulls are fake. There's not actually an actual mythology around crystal skulls. They were a hoax. So I would have to create an entirely original thing around them. That then I might as well do that with anything else and actually have it properly tie in with the artifact instead of just being like, oh, crystal skulls are real and here it wasn't created by a fraudster and blah blah blah. Why wouldn't I just use an actual historical or folklore thing and use that to create the time with history that I like to go for? So Crystal Skull just became a joke, and yeah, there's been a couple other things like that where it's and in some cases there's the ones where I realize that I have an idea, I try to think of it for a while, think of how it could work, and I just can't get a big enough plot, and eventually it becomes a segment of a multi-story segment, like the just an example, like the one about mass hysteria, or the one about the sound, where it's just like oh god, the sound like I thought about like, oh, I could do something about Havana syndrome before people thought Havana syndrome was real, back when it was just a silly fake thing that people joked about, and then the entire world's gone insane, and now people actually think Havana syndrome is real. So Havana syndrome was just something like, oh, what can I do with this in Mistholme? And then I was like, oh wait, there's mythology around strange noises and stuff, so I'll do a whole thing, and the Havana syndrome can just be one of those. And now the world's gone insane. So yeah, the cannon drop that they have the ship of Theseus. Yeah, that was just like a fun, silly thing to just be like, oh, the bloody ship was always like there's this fun joke. It's just like a museum trying to keep the ship of Theseus in good repair, and it's always needing new repairs. That was just like a silly joke that I really liked. Um, oh, would Zephyr be? Uh, oh, hold on. Oh, there's a question on this. Oh, the curator is yeah, more or less, actually. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I know where the curator is. That's not something I'm making up as I go along. I have an answer to what the curator's deal is, and I hope that it's satisfying. Uh, Zeph, well, my partner, is now in the chat. The Zephyr might be friends with the dogs from Quadrupedal. One of the dogs in Quadrupedal was named Daisy and was actually named after and was Emily's old dog that unfortunately is now dead. So maybe, but also Daisy didn't like other dogs in real life, so who knows? Maybe not. Any characters I really dislike? I hate the guy. The guy. I mean, it's one of those things where you write a character to be hateable, and then you hate them. It's like, oh, what do you expect? But the guy from the Ghosts one, where he microwaved a ghost, God, that fucking guy. Oh, and also Edgar Allan from the Ghostlight story. That was you can tell that that I have a history in theatre and have known people like Edgar Allan in real life and that sort of thing. I've Yeah, yeah, so, very inspired by real people. Uh, so yeah, yeah, I do hate a couple of characters. Um, and hmm, yeah, I don't know if there are other specific ones that I hate, but yeah. Were there any other questions that I missed there? I would never say the guide. I would never say the guide, okay? Um, oh, those fools in Paris, that was that's a reference to the Louvre. It's just a reference to, like, just I thought it would be funny to be like, "Hey, there's this museum of, the Louvre or the Musée d'Orsay or something like that," where it was just, like what the staff of this mad magical museum of impossible things just having a real low key contempt for people who just have like pretty portraits and stuff in there. It's just like, uh, I bet they don't even have to they don't even have to deal with the slime on level 6. God, they don't know what they. Ugh. I have not been. I haven't been to the Louvre. I don't know. I've been to the Musée d'Orsay. That was quite nice. They had some Magrittes there, which were lovely. Um, yeah, yeah. That was one of those things. Other alternatural museums, maybe there are. I don't like. That was something that I fully intended to like. Oh, there's interaction with other agencies or other museums or something, and then it just hasn't felt right at any point. It feels like a. That feels like it would be expanding the world in a way, but making it less interesting. I think because I like to have the museum exist to a degree in your own head. You're taking the tour. The museum is what you imagine it to be, and then like if I'm like, oh, there are also other museums that have other exhibits and stuff. Feels like it makes it a little, I don't know, a little less universal. Maybe this world only needs one museum. Things wind up in the Mistholme Museum. They just kind of uh, they just make their way there because it's where they're supposed to be. Which, what, if there were other museums? Oh, do other things make their way to those ones? And I do know, like, I have the the origin of the Mistholme Museum and that sort of thing. That there is a canon to that. But yeah, yeah, it was just one of those things where like at one point Zane was suggesting, I was like, oh, maybe there's a government agency that wants all these. Instead, I'm just like, yeah, but that doesn't feel like that. Like the bit where the in the TV show or the book series or something where they're dealing with the obstructive government agency instead of the supernatural or interdimensional threat or whatever. That's always the worst plot line. It was the most underwhelming plot line in Stargate SG-1. It was the obstructive bureaucrat stuff is just, ugh, I don't want to write that. So yeah. My partner has not done art commissions in recent years, but I that's a possibility. Yeah, maybe. Learn more about the patronage department. Maybe that's one of those things where uh, I put off having the patronage department in a way and I can't decide if I want to keep doing that or if I want to introduce the patronage department because I do like the idea that for the patronage department, it's just like it's just like running a museum to a degree. Sure, there's like extra security stuff and the AI, the tour guide is sapient and all this other stuff, but their job is just to make the museum run well, and they're not dealing with like research and restoration and retrieval are doing all this stuff involving the security department that went cannibal and trying to find the curator that's disappeared into other realms, and then the head of patronage is off trying to secure funding. I thought that was just like but no, it wasn't even secure funding. It was just like talking with outside benefactors and trying to smooth over. It was just like everyone else is like, man, we've faced down an interdimensional threat, and the patronage department's head is just like, yeah, it's been a PR nightmare. I've got to deal with this. So maybe I will, and but yeah, it'd be kind of hard for it to be anything but a bit silly to have that, but maybe that's not a bad thing. So I go back and forth on that. Uh, yeah, yeah. There's a tension between the museum as the Mistholme Museum and the museum as a place people go to be in a museum. We will be hearing more of the head of research. Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah. Head of research was trying to figure out the way to include her this season, and but not too much, because the season was already a bit complicated, and I'd already introduced like 5 new characters this season. So like head of research was always going to be, obviously related to the Wish engine and stuff. It's like it's an incredible thing. But I was just trying to find the right time to introduce her, and yeah, like right at the end, as things were in like those last 2 episodes where it's kind of like a wrap up, but not quite for the season. Yeah, patronage goes, not my department when anything ultra-natural happens. Literally, yeah, yeah. I like the idea that there's just some people who's just like, yeah, oh no, there's another rampage happening from the creatures in the stables. That's going to be such a mess to clean up. Literally, not like catching them, just getting all of the dung and stuff. Yeah. Um, yeah. And also, yes. So, like I said, the wrap up. There's not much wrap up this season, and I knew that, and that's kind of why the name of the season in the acrostic is irresolution, which it's a kind of a pun, because irresolution uh, means a lack of resolve, rather than a lack of having an ending. And like I tied that into the way that both plot lines, everything kind of gets worse for our protagonists, because they're the staff of a museum, and they're just trying to be like, okay, let's just try to figure this out. Let's ease into this. We'll keep security here, and we'll just kind of question them and try to figure it out. Or Raptor team is like, all right, we'll follow the beast. This doesn't seem right, but we don't have any other options, so we'll do this. And then their lack of uh, their own decision to lack agency kind of bites them, and then we have restoration say at the end of the season. It's like, well, we need to not make this mistake again. So that's that part of a resolution, but it's also just a pun, because there's a lack of a resolution to this season, because it's if you break the show into arcs, you'd like the lockdown arc is going to be the first 3 seasons, and then this is the beginning of a new arc that doesn't have much of an ending. It's setting up more things, and I knew that. So, and I figured, well, if I'm not going to have this season have an actual like satisfying ending, at the very least, I can point that out and make it intentional, and then you can't criticize me. Yeah. Are there any other questions? I really will answer any more questions you have. But if you guys are running out of things to say, yeah, happy to wrap things up whenever. Yeah, look, no, the end of season 4. It's one of those things where if you like cliffhangers, then it's probably good. I was just worried that yeah, it's kind of like the two towers sort of thing, where it's, well, we won that, and that battle's done, and now the war sort of thing, where the characters kind of acknowledge that nothing has gone their way all season, and it's a bit bleak. Yeah, okay. Dairy's all done. Does anyone else have any questions? Really, don't be shy. Feel free to send them privately if you don't want them in the chat as well. Just message on Patreon or whatever. I can also look there. But yeah, um, I don't think there was anything else I wanted to ramble on about myself. Season 4. Gosh, season 4 was a lot. I'm happy with how it turned out. It's been interesting going from because I went on a big after towards the end of season. I was writing. Oh God, start a sentence and finish it. For Dead Man, I was writing it throughout the last year. It's taken me a year to write the first draft. I was writing it throughout the last season, but like I really started picking it up and wanting to finish it, the first draft, in the last few months. And going, so I was writing that constantly, and then going back to the shorter stories is very strange. It's um, like I need to make sure that everything is self-contained, and then I try to yeah, with the Dead Man, it's been really satisfying to be like, oh, I can go back and edit this like thing that happened 40,000 words ago, and it's not a big deal. Whereas in Mistholme, it's just like, haha, last season is published. I am stuck with what I've got there. Like there was a thing in just in writing season 5 where it was I Zane and I were when we were recording. Actually, no, it would have been season 4. But yeah, as we were recording the stranger that appears at the end of the last episode, I had a moment where I was just like, oh, the bracelet. Have I made it iron? Wouldn't it be perfect if I'd made it iron so the fey creatures can't touch it? And no, it's bone. I'm like, I wish I could go back and change that. That would have been so. I wish I'd given myself a little gift like that. But no, it is what it is. Thank you. Yeah, I hope that I can keep the tightrope act going. Yeah, it's yeah, I've got a few stories written. Got like 8 stories written, and then a few museum narrative sections written for the next season. So it's not going to be uh, too soon. I think it's a few months away still. The previous hiatuses have been 3 months, and yeah, maybe we'll stick to that. It needs a yeah. It's one of those things where I've had a rough couple of months, and I haven't really been writing too much. I've only just gotten back into the swing of writing in the last little bit. So yeah, it's hard to say what the pace is going to be, and hopefully at some point soon everything just kind of starts clicking together, and I'll be able to go into high gear and get it written. But yeah, I will let you all know on the Patreon when I know better of when things are going to be progressing. And yeah, thank you all for coming along. Thank you all so much for listening. It means a lot. It does. It's nice to actually be a writer. It feels like something that's impossible to do is be a writer, but to a degree, I'm managing it, and it almost covers my rent. And yeah, and all right, I'll be wrapping up there. Thank you all so much, and stop asking what skittlings are.